Lake Winnipesaukee is the largest lake in the U.S. state of New Hampshire. It is approximately 21 miles long and from 1 to 9 miles wide, covering 69 square miles (Euro 71 square miles) when Paugus Bay is included (Euro with a maximum depth of 212 feet. The lake contains at least 258 islands, half of which are less than a quarter-acre in size, and is indented by several peninsulas, yielding a total shoreline of approximately 288 miles. The driving distance around the lake is 63 miles. It is 504 feet above sea level. Winnipesaukee is the third largest lake in New England after Lake Champlain and Moosehead Lake. Outflow is regulated by the Lakeport Dam on the Winnipesaukee River. History. Lake Winnipesaukee has been a tourist destination for more than a century, especially for residents seeking respite from the summer heat of Boston and New York City. The Native American name Winnipesaukee means either smile of the Great Spirit, or beautiful water in a high place. At the outlet of the Winnipesaukee River, the Winnipesaukee Indians, a sub-tribe of the Penawak, lived and fished at a village called Aqueducton. Today, the site is called the Weirs, named for the Weirs colonists discovered when first exploring the region. Winnipesaukee is a glacial lake but an unusual one, since the last glaciation actually reversed the flow of its waters. Draining the central portion of New Hampshire, it once flowed southeast, leaving via what is now Alton Bay toward the Atlantic Ocean. When glacial debris blocked this path, flow was redirected westward through Paugus Bay into the Winnipesaukee River. The latter flows west from the lake and joins the Pemigewasset River in Franklin to form the Merrimack River, which flows south to Massachusetts and into the Atlantic. Center Harbor witnessed the first intercollegiate sporting event in the United States, as Harvard defeated Yale by 2 lengths in the first Harvard-Yale regatta on August 3, 1852. The outcome was repeated 100 years later when the schools celebrated the centennial of the race by again competing on Lake Winnipesaukee. Lake Winnipesaukee was also where the eponymous Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone was found. Cities and towns. The communities that surround the lake, clockwise from the southernmost town, are Alton, the largest town in area in the lakes region. Guilford, home to Gunstock Mountain Resort and Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion at Meadowbrook, a popular New Hampshire concert venue. Laconia, the main commercial city on the lake. Included in Laconia is Weirs Beach, the largest public bathing area on Winnipesaukee. Every year Laconia is home to Bike Week, attracting thousands of motorcyclists to the area. Meredith, whose harbor lies on the northwestern reach of the lake. Center Harbor, a small town in Belknap County which serves as the winter home for the Miss Mount Washington. Moultonborough, with its castle in the clouds, an estate atop a small mountain. Tuftonborough, which contains Melvin Village. Wolfborough, which bills itself as the oldest summer resort in America. Islands. There are at least 258 natural islands on Lake Winnipesaukee that are at least 3 feet above lake level and contain vegetation, about 130 of which are over 0.25 acres in size. 26 of these are 25 acres or larger, Long Island Euro 1,186 acres, Bear Island Euro 780 acres, Cow Island Euro 522 acres, Governor's Island Euro 504 acres, Rattlesnake Island Euro 368 acres, Welch Island Euro 187 acres, Little Bear Island Euro 143 acres, Stone Dam Island Euro 141 acres, Timber Island Euro 136 acres, Sleepers Island Euro 113 acres, Marcus Land Euro 102 acres, Black Island Euro 90 acres, Barndor Island Euro 88 acres, Black Cat Island Euro 75 acres, Pine Island Euro 74 acres, Waterbury Island Euro 69 acres, Sandy Island Euro 67 acres, Jolly Island Euro 50 acres, 3 Mile Island Euro 47 acres, Round Island Euro 43 acres, Locks Island Euro 42 acres, Diamond Island Euro 37 acres, Dow Island Euro 32 acres, Big Beaver Island Euro 30 acres, Camp Island Euro 28 acres, Mink Islander €26 acres, Birch Islander €25 acres. 6 islands are connected to the mainland by bridges in Paugus Bay and Worcester, and another 8 are served by the U.S. mailboat ɛwɪnɪpəsɔːki. Lakes region, along with the rest of New Hampshire's Lakes region, which also encompasses Lake Winnisquam, Lake Wentworth, Squim Lake and Newfound Lake, Winnipesaukee has been a vacation community for at least a century, particularly drawing people from the Boston region. The area is home to numerous summer theater troupes and offers a variety of land and water recreational activities. There are numerous hiking trails in and around the surrounding mountains, which include the Ossipee Mountains to the east, the Bilgnut Range to the west, and Red Hill to the north. Steamship Mount Washington and her successor. The paddler steamer MSA Mount Washington, named after the highest of New Hampshire's White Mountains, was launched in spring 1872 to carry mail, goods, and passengers on Lake Winnipesaukee, under the flag of the Boston and Maine Railroad. With a hull length of 178 feet and a beam of 49 feet, she appeared as a typical representative of the North American sidewheelers around the second half of the century and was the largest steamer on the lake at that time. The huge paddle wheels were driven by a single-cylinder steam engine of 450 HP at approximately 26 RPMs. The power was transferred from the vertical single-cylinder to the wheel shaft by the walking beam, high above the upper deck, oscillating in the frequency of the paddle wheels. Known as the Mount, her kitchen and restaurant service became famous. On December 23, 1939, a nearby railroad station caught fire from an overheated stove. The fire soon spread to the ship, tied at the dock, and destroyed it. Efforts to cut Mount Washington loose were to no avail, as it was a time of extremely low water and the hull was stuck fast in the mud of the lake bottom. Soon after, a local company was formed to build a new ship. Since Europe was already at war, obtaining steel was impossible. Instead, they purchased an old sidewheel vessel on Lake Champlain, the Chateauguay, a 203-foot, iron-hulled sidewheeler that was being used as a clubhouse for the Burlington Yacht Club. It was cut into sections and transported to Lake Winnipesaukee on rail cars. A new twin-screw vessel was designed for the hull being welded back together at Lakeport. Powered by 2 steam engines taken from another ocean-going yacht, the new Miss Mount Washington made her maiden voyage on August 15, 1940. 2 years after her launch, the new Mount Washington Euro-S engines were removed for use in a Navy vessel during World War II. After the war, Mount Washington returned to the water. The ship was a success in the post-war tourist boom. In 1982, Mount Washington was cut open and extended with an additional 20-foot hull section to add larger lounge and food service facilities. Still popular, she makes 1 or 2 round trips on the lake per day during the summer season, as well as numerous dinner dance cruises in the evenings. U.S. mailboat ɛwɪnɪpəʻsɔːki. The ɛwɪnɪpəʻsɔːki is the oldest, and one of only 2 currently operating, floating United States Postal Service post offices. Floating post office service was started on Lake Winnipesaukee in 1892, and currently delivers mail daily to 8 of the lake's islands between June and September. As a floating post office, ɛwɪnɪpəʻsɔːki delivers mail Monday-Saturday, sells postage, and collects and postmarks outgoing mail. ɛwɪnɪpəʻsɔːki also operates as a sightseeing boat, carrying up to 125 people on her 2 cruises a day as she delivers mail, and sells ice cream and snacks to residents of the islands she serves. Weather and climate: average summertime on or next to the water brings days around 80 degree Fahrenheit, with overnight lows around 65 degree Fahrenheit. Less than 1/2 mile away from the water, days can be warmer and nights cooler by several degrees. Summer's most extreme temperatures away from the water may be as high as 100 degree Fahrenheit and as low as 50 degree Fahrenheit. A typical winter day brings a maximum of 28 degree Fahrenheit with overnight minimum around 15 degree Fahrenheit. Typical wintertime extremes are 50 degree Fahrenheit and a 20 degree Fahrenheit, but even greater extremes have been recorded nearby. The water temperature typically reaches the upper 70s in late July and cools into the 60s in September. Several days of hot, Humid weather at the height of summer can bring the water temperature well above 80 degree Fahrenheit. It normally freezes during the last week of December. Ice thickness during a typical winter can be in excess of 18 inches in many parts of the lake. Ice Out. Lake Winnipesaukee is known for its annual Ice Out contest, in which people try to guess the earliest date that the Mount Washington can safely leave her port in Center Harbor and motor to 4 other ports. Since records began in 1851, Ice Out has happened as early as March 23 and as late as May 12, although 90% of the time it is declared during April. This official ruling is made by David Emerson of Emerson Aviation. In popular culture and the arts, Thornton Wilder's 1938 Pulitzer Prize-winning play, Our Town, refers to Lake Winnipesaukee at the beginning of Act 3. In a Three Stooges 1940 short No Census, No Feeling, the Stooges are census takers, and Curly answers a query about his birthplace with Lake Winnipesaukee. When Moe asks him to spell it, he switches course, and says make that Lake Erie. I've got an uncle there. Some boating scenes from the 1981 Academy Award-winning film On Golden Pond were shot on the lake, though the main scenes were from nearby Squim Lake. In 1982, composer Alan Hovhaness, who spent much of his childhood in New Hampshire, composed Lake Winnipesaukee, Op. 363, a sextet for flute, oboe, cello, 2 percussion, and piano. The 1991 movie comedy What About Bob? Was set at Lake Winnipesaukee, although the actual filming was done at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia. The 2006 comedy Click has a flashback depicting Adam Sandler as a kid playing on a beach on Lake Winnipesaukee. In the debut of Adam Sandler's Thanksgiving song, on Saturday Night Live, the longtime New Hampshire resident sings, I used to go to camp at Lake Winnipesaukee. See also, List of lakes in New Hampshire, references. The New Hampshire State Almanac, external links, lakewinnipesaukee.net, winnipesaukee.com, Lake Winnipesaukee Gallery at whitemountainart.com, Lake Winnipesaukee Historical Society, Lakes Region Conservation Trust, Lake Level Graphs, NH Department of Environmental Services, Rattlesnake Island website, Lake Winnipesaukee 6 Steamer watercolor by D.J. Kennedy. Historical Society of Pennsylvania, Weep Cams, Alton Bay Winnipesaukee Cam, Bear Island Conservation Association Bear Cam, Black Cat Island Lake Winnipesaukee Weather Cam, Rattlesnake Island, Weirs Beach Weirs Cam, Weirs Channel, Wolfboro Bay Wolfboro Cam.